Everyone remembers Jessie's story as a story about abandonment. It isn't. Jessie's greatest fear in Toy Story 2 isn't being forgotten. It's believing that every love she's ever given will eventually leave her. Quick disclaimer, this is a kid's movie about toys coming to life. It should not be this devastating. And yet, somehow, the most quietly brutal character study in the Pixar canon is hiding inside a film that also features a exercise bike riding Buzz Lightyear. That's Toy Story 2 for you. Comedy and trauma. Riding shotgun in the same car. Here's the shape of it. Jessie belonged to a girl named Emily. For years, that was enough. The two of them inseparable. Jessie riding along through a whole childhood. Then Emily grew up, the way children do, and Jessie ended up under the bed. Not thrown away, not broken, just left. And here's the detail that changes everything. There's no other toy under that bed with her. No community, no company, just Jessie, alone for what the film implies is years. So why didn't she just crawl out? There are two ways to read it, and both are devastating. Maybe it's a test. Jessie waiting to be found, holding on to the fantasy that discovery would prove she still mattered. Or maybe it's simpler and sadder. It's safer to love Emily from a distance than to risk what happens if she gets close and loses her again. Under the bed, at least, Emily is near. That's the whole trade Jessie is making. Proximity without risk. Now for the moment that quietly breaks the entire story. When Emily finally cleans out her room, she doesn't toss Jessie straight into the donation box with the rest of the cowgirl memorabilia.
And she smiled at me and
She puts her in her bag, and Jessie, for one brief, golden stretch of screen time, is smiling, peaceful, chosen. She believes for just a second that she's being kept. Then the bag opens, and it's the box after all.
spent together.
This is the actual wound, not the neglect under the bed. The false hope, immediately followed by confirmation that hope was foolish. That reversal is what teaches Jessie her real lesson. It isn't safe to believe you're loved, because belief is exactly what gets punished. And here's the thing worth saying plainly. Nobody's the villain in this. Emily isn't cruel. She's a kid growing into a life that no longer has room for a stuffed cowgirl. And the way she handles that last ride, gently, in her own bag, tells you she cared. We can't blame her for growing up. We can't blame Jessie for what growing up did to her. That's what makes this tragedy instead of villainy. And tragedy is so much harder to heal from. There's no one to be angry at except the shape of love itself. All right, enough sympathy for Emily. Let's talk about the actual bad guy. Stuck in storage with Stinky Pete and Bullseye, Jessie is exposed to something worse than loneliness. A philosophy built to use her loneliness. Watch the Prospector's scenes again as an adult, and the manipulation is unmistakable. The gentle voice, the reasonable tone, always circling back to the same idea.
It's your choice, Woody. You can go back, or you can stay with us and last forever.
Love from a child is temporary, but a museum case is forever. He doesn't invent Jessie's fear. He takes the fear that already exists in her and hands it a justification, a reason to never hope again. Bullseye offers her comfort through presence. The Prospector offers her a cage dressed up as safety, which brings us to the hardest part of Jessie's arc. Not the abandonment itself, but what it does to her capacity to trust, moment to moment, for the rest of the film. Watch how she flinches around Woody's optimism. Watch how quickly she's ready to choose the museum.
He still has an owner.
Oh my goodness.
No, can't go. I can't do storage again. I just can't.
Jessie!
I won't go back in the dark.
Immortality without love, over the uncertain, breakable, real thing Woody's offering her. That's not nostalgia for Emily talking. That's the Prospector's voice, borrowed and internalized. She has learned, cell deep, that being loved is just the delay before being left. Choosing the shelf isn't cowardice. It's what looks like wisdom, if your only evidence has been rejection. Consider what happens when a toy never gets talked down off that shelf. A few years later, Pixar shows us exactly that toy, Lotso, in Toy Story 3, whose abandonment curdled into something that never got the chance to soften. A toy who decided every child would eventually betray him and built a small tyranny out of that belief. Jessie is one plush horse and one honest conversation away from becoming him. That's how close this story runs to real damage. The easy read here is that Jessie's arc mirrors Woody's, both of them simply afraid of being left behind, both talked out of it by the same act of friendship. It's a tidy symmetry, and it's not quite right. Woody's fear is hypothetical, a worry about a future that hasn't happened yet. Jessie's fear is evidence-based. Someone already did leave her. Her arc isn't about learning that abandonment is survivable in theory. It's about relearning that trust is survivable at all, after it already cost her everything once. So no, Jessie was never really afraid of an empty shelf. Being forgotten would almost have been easier. It doesn't require hope. What terrified her was the alternative, being chosen again, believing in it again, and finding out that love always, eventually, leaves. What Woody gives her isn't rescue from loneliness. It's proof that a love can end in loss and still have been worth having. That the bag was real, even if the box came after. Jessie didn't need someone to promise her forever. She needed someone willing to say, it might end, and I'm staying anyway. That's the harder promise, and the only one that actually means anything. So maybe the idea we should be considering isn't why Jessie was so afraid to be loved again. It's how many of us are still telling ourselves the same thing she did, that it's safer this way. This is Ladies First, watching women in movies. If you love analyzing the best female characters in cinema, like the video. Subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.